You good?
We good now? All right. I told you this morning we're going to call Detective Greg Wolf. Detective Wolf, before you testify, would you be sworn in by the foreperson?
You do solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name for the record, Detective Wolf.
Greg Wolf.
Where are you currently employed, Detective Wolf?
I'm employed with the Department of Criminal Investigations at the Office of the Attorney General.
And briefly, what kind of work do you do?
We do statewide investigations, public corruption, cyber investigations, and drug investigations throughout the state of Kentucky.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, how long have you been in law enforcement?
I've been in law enforcement 38 years, started in 1982.
Has that all been in the Commonwealth of Kentucky?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, you've been working with myself, Barbara, Rewell, and Alex over the last several weeks, assisting us in this investigation on this case. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
We're going to be talking about some forensics, some of the autopsy findings, things of that sort.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's go first to the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
If you had an opportunity to review those files before preparing for your testimony this morning?
I have.
All right. Can you approach, if you could, for a moment? What do we have back here? And it's exhibit, for the records, 64. What is 64? Where did that come from?
It come from the medical examiner's office. It's an outline of the injuries to the victim.
All right. And where does that come
From the Office of the Medical Examiner.
All right. And is that a typical wound chart, they call it, that is prepared by the medical examiner when they're examining a body to determine its cause of death?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And is this particular chart, does it relate to the injuries that were on or about the person of Breonna Taylor after the shooting?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let's go through them if we could, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. And let me get mine here. And you certainly are welcome if you want to use that to help you some. I think we have a beeper. Oh, here we no, one of those. Oh, we got it. All right, you got it.
Here, you want me?
Okay, thank you. Let me put the date on the record. It's September the 23rd, 2020. This is the Jefferson County Grand Jury continuation of their evidence we're presenting here about the death of Breonna Taylor. Thank you for reminding me. That's what. All right. Have you got this little laser?
Yeah, you want it?
You go ahead and point. First of all, let's go to the top right, facing us.
Yes,
Can
sir.
you do that? All right. And by that I mean if we can work through these first two and tell us what the medical examiner determined from that examination of Miss Taylor.
The victim had a gunshot wound to her abdomen and her left upper breast.
All right. Go ahead.
These gunshots did not exit the body.
All right. And let's go to there's one on her left forearm there. See that?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It's a left entry into the forearm, and it exited her upper arm. It went in this area and came out this area.
Okay. All right. And that one, the bullet did exit from.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. The first two, that is the ones in the torso, those bullets remained and were found by the medical examiner and the detectives who were present at the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
Why is that important that the medical examiner permit law enforcement in an autopsy to recover bullets from the body? Why is that important?
It helps establish the chain of command that came directly from the victim to the medical examiner, and then the detective recovers them directly from the victim.
All right, and what kind of forensic work can be done on bullets? We're going to be talking about some of that, but explain a little bit briefly.
Yes, sir.
Why that's important.
Firearms examiners can examine the projectile and see if it came from a particular weapon.
And how do they do that briefly, but not getting too complicated?
To be the most simple terms I can, I apologize if I'm a little remedial for some of you. If I was to fire a Glock 22 .40 caliber weapon here today, obviously the projectile would go out through the weapon. It would be marked with lands and grooves. The casing would be ejected. It would also be marked. The firearms examiner then does a comparison to those ballistics by doing test firing. from like or similar ammunition, and then compares the test fires to the actual rounds.
So the lands and grooves that are found on an expended bullet and on a casing, are those marks for the most part unique?
Yes, sir.
And is it because of their uniqueness that they can attribute those bullets and casings to an actual gun that was used to fire?
That's correct.
And we're going to be talking about some
Yes,
of that
sir.
here. All right. So let's go to the next wound that we have. Can we? No, that's all right. Thank you. I'm sorry. And let's talk about some of the wounds that are on the chart in the lower extremities of Miss Taylor's body.
She had a wound to her left lower thigh that exited actually her left rear upper thigh or side of her thigh. She also had a through and through, what I call a through and through shot, a shot that went through her right foot and exited. And she also had a projectile that was found in the heel of her right foot.
Okay. All right. Did the medical examiner determine the cause of death for this young woman?
Yes, sir.
And what was that?
It was the wound here to the left upper breast.
Did he indicate the trajectory or the manner in which it entered and left in the body, the direction?
Yes, sir. It entered the body in this area and took us downward direction from there.
All right. Did it injure or cause injuries to her lungs, and did they ultimately cause her death?
Injury to her lungs, also ruptured an artery that caused some severe bleeding.
All right. Thank you. Our next exhibit, who is John Mattingly? They've heard his name. Just to refresh everybody. Who is he, a detective?
John Mattingly is the detective sergeant from Louisville Police Department that was also shot at this crime scene.
And we've heard evidence you're familiar with. He was shot at the scene.
Yes, sir.
All right. And what is this we have here? At 65 for the record. Thank you. 65 for the record.
Yes, sir.
And what is 65? Orient us here for a minute. Is this a wound locator chart?
Yes, sir. This is a wound locator.
And was this done by Dr. Smock?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with Dr. Smock?
Yes, sir.
From
I've
your years of work.
worked with Dr. Smock many times over the years.
He's the preeminent forensic wound doctor in Louisville, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Or really in the Commonwealth?
Right.
All right. Now, do we have wounds indicated here that Mr. Mattingly suffered based on the forensic work of Dr. Smock?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sergeant Mattingly had a wound that entered his left upper thigh to the front and exited the rear left upper thigh.
All right. And that was the only, was there any other injuries? That was it?
That was the only injury.
All right. Now, you had talked about, we talked briefly, and that's why I asked you questions on it. You said very briefly that casings can be used to determine through a forensic exam what gun they were fired from.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let's take a moment here, because and you help me and the jury talk a little bit about what you mentioned the term Glock. Is Glock a 9mm?
In this particular case, it was a 40 caliber. 40 caliber Glock 22 was the model.
And are casings ejected from a firearm?
Yes, sir.
Explain what you mean to the jury. You're familiar with this kind of firearm?
Typically, if you're firing a firearm, if you're firing it, they will eject to your right, and they will pop out to the right, depending on what's beside you, if it's grass, if it's concrete, how far they travel, and what they go. But typically, they'll eject to the right side of the weapon.
And then what a live round then moves up into the chamber?
That's right. Once the round is ejected, the next round comes into the chamber until the weapon is empty, and then it'll lock back at what point it's empty.
Now, do police officers commonly, and certainly in Louisville, use a 9mm Glock as their service weapon?
Yes, sir. The Glock 40 is the weapon that the Louisville Police Department, all the officers were carrying.
And we've talked about John Mattingly. We've also heard about Brett Hankinson at the scene.
Yes, sir.
And a Miles Cosgrove. Were they all using Glock 9mm weapons on the night of Breonna's death?
They were using the Glock 40.
The Glock 40, I keep saying, I'm sorry. All right.
40 caliber.
But that Glock ejects the casings?
Yes.
All right. And in preparation for your testimony, you and I went over the photos of that.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that correct?
Yes, sir.
Because at the scene photo, there's a number of casings.
Right.
And were those casings examined forensically to determine the source of the firing of those bullets?
Yes, sir, they were sent to the state police lab for analysis.
All right. And in preparation, you and I have been looking with other prosecutors at the photos that will help the jury see where these casings were located. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me go to my next series here. 66. All right. Now let's get us oriented here for just a moment. Let's wait one moment here. I may have you do a little walking around here for a second.
Trajectory report.
One moment here.
Trajectory.
All right. Detective Wolf, come over here. You might be able to, using these, can you kind of orient the jury?
Sure.
We're going to be looking at,
If I get you way up on something, I'll try to get up. This is the front of the park, the window where gunshots were in. These markings that you see here that were initially marked by the Louisville Police Department evidence collection, it was determined these were already at the scene. They had no bearing on this site. There were some old casings, but they were marked initially.
and we're going to be looking at some photos. In fact, Reva's already put one up, kind of orient them to where these projectiles are with either photo that helps you.
The projectiles are the casings you'll be seeing.
Okay,
The first casings are here. This is the parking lot. They're in the area of these cars.
All right, great. All right, let's go up here and look at what we got. Now, I'm gonna make it simple.
If you look at this,
All right,
this is
thank
the
you.
area here where the casings were.
All right. Now, I'm gonna make it simple. Were all the casings that you and I are gonna be talking to the jury about this morning, were they all forensically examined
Yes, sir.
by the Kentucky State Police ballistics expert?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was the Kentucky State Police ballistics expert able to identify in each instance the casing and where the source of the firearm was?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now we're looking at some casings you're telling the jury is out in the parking lot, away from the apartment. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Are these casings that were determined by the forensic ballistic exam to be Brett Hankinson's?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And there again, these here are the casings I mentioned earlier that are not relevant to this scene. They were in the parking lot or in the mulch from an earlier incident. I think somebody mentioned something about maybe New Year's Eve, somebody shot off a gun.
All right. Those are irrelevant and
Yes,
determined to be
these
unconnected.
are the casings we're
All right.
considering.
Okay. That's 66.
Yes, sir.
Can we look at 60? Which ones that are there? You got 1, 2.
1, 2, 1, 3, 4. Here's 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe 9 is behind the tire. And 10. Yes, that's it. And these are just, if you look at these, here's the back of this pickup truck. The first group of casings are here, and then you come over here to the right slightly. If you're facing the apartment, is where the second set of casings
All
are.
right.
Yes,
60.
sir.
Are we at 9 that we are we determined there's been 9 casings from Brett Hankinson?
10 casings were recovered, yes, sir.
Thank you for the question. Raise your hand if anytime you got a question. Okay, we're on 60. Let's go to 68, if we could. All right.
There again, this is the casings, and this is the sliding glass door that you'll see was shots were fired through, and this is the window that you'll see shots were fired through.
All of these casings we see around these vehicles you pointed out to the jury, I got to
Yes,
get them
sir.
out of the shadow.
There you go, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, if you can just see there, and 10.
They were all casings from a firearm that was determined to belong to Brett Hankinson. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, I want to go to, I get 60, let's go to 69 real quick. I think you've already counted these, but let's see. Yes, ma'am, you already put it up? I didn't, okay, 68, I'm sorry. And then we'll go to 69. Okay, all right, sorry, thank you. These are all just other photographs of
Yes,
the
sir.
casings located.
Just another picture of the casings.
Now, when there is a crime scene, is it common for detectives like yourself and other agents with law enforcement to work a scene
Yes, sir.
and to collect evidence?
Yes, sir.
Is part of that collection, is it common for them to collect casings and bullets and any other paraphernalia that looks to them to be connected to the crime?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, so we've got, all of these are Brett Hankinson.
Yes, sir.
All right. Yes, please.
I'm assuming these vehicles weren't there at the time of the shots?
Yes, this is.
They weren't moved, right?
No, these were the pictures actually at the crime scene by the Louisville police detectives.
Thank you. Now, you had pointed out, I think a moment ago, about the sliding door over here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Al. Let's show them, because we're going to show a couple photos of this window.
Here again, he's in this parking lot. Ryan, here is the sliding glass door that 5 shots were fired through, and then the window that 5 shots were fired through.
All right. Is that Breonna's sister's bedroom there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
That's my understanding.
And this goes into the
To the living room.
living room.
Living room down.
Okay. Now, I asked you that because I want to show the jury Exhibit 70.
There's a
Detective Wolf, what is that? Explain that to the jury. Why are
This is
these
the
marks?
screen door that is on the outside of, you can see the shattered sliding glass door, and this is marking the 5 holes in the screen where the projectile went through the screen door.
And based on the trajectory, those are Hankinson's shots,
Yes,
as far
sir.
as we know.
Yes, sir.
All right, what about 71?
There again, that's a close-up of the same thing. Screen door on the outside of the shattered, you can see the shattered sliding glass door. You know, that's a good question. I can't.
No, I'll say straight.
No, I think it's the sliding door, not the room in the black.
And it looks like just a typical screen door to me that you.
What I mean is what's behind it, the dark things I see.
Oh, that's just the room. You see the. And there was some blinds that you see when you see some pictures inside.
And Kurt, too.
Yeah.
Yes. And what we have marked there, the actual bullet holes
Right.
from the bullets flying through that part of the apartment.
Yes.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Yeah, are those bullets, are those the ones that went into apartment 3?
We're going to show you some trajectories. Good question. If you'll hang on a minute, we're going to be able to show you. We're going to talk a little about the trajectory of forensic work that's done. So hold that. I can hold that for a moment. You're right on target, I think. All right. I'll probably had a window. Wait a minute. Yeah, go ahead.
So he was shooting from behind the window.
You know, it's okay. There again, all we know is where the shell casings were. You know, typically, like I said, you guys fire.
Okay. Thanks.
Crime sheet
Yeah.
Typically, they will be somewhere right in this area. So you can see two kind of piles. Obviously, there was a lot going on. There's potential, I think you'll see that in some of these other pictures. The first thing that gets kicked and moved and picked up and moves is shell casings. They're easy to get knocked around, but in general, to your point, you'll expect to see your casings right now where you shoot.
What are we looking at here?
This is the second window that
What exhibit number is that? Huh? Okay, got to introduce through Jeff. All right.
and you see the shots through the window that is 5-shot.
That's the window in Breonna's sister bedroom.
Yes, sir.
How many bullets went through there?
5.
All right. Cosgrove's next.
That was exhibit 22.
Thank you. Let's go to exhibit 72. First of all, tell, where are we here on this, this scene here?
We were looking into the, where it goes into where the apartment here is Miss Taylor's apartment, this is apartment 3. This is where the officers were staging to enter the apartment and where Cosgrove and Madeline's shell casings were located.
All right. And these markers here, what do they represent? I think you just said a moment ago. What are we going to see here?
These are mostly shell casings. There's some other things in here, but I think the emphasis on this is the shell casings from Detective Cosgrove and Detective Sergeant Madeline.
All right.
And there's a couple of other things marked in there you'll be able to see when we get up close.
All right. Okay, it tells you 19. May get a closer one here. Let's go to 73, see what that helps us out. All right. Is it the same foyer we're looking at, just a different portion of that breezeway?
Yes, and you can see here is the entry device, RAM, whatever you call it, they call it now, that they use to make entry to the door, and it's basically just a RAM. And then you see shell casings, 22, 23, 29, 28.
So let's point out for the jury some of the casings here that are numbered. If you can you read them all right? For instance,
Some of them I
19.
can, but 19 is detective has been identified as coming. There again, these casings were sent to the Kentucky State Police lab for examination and comparison with the officers' guns. 19 came back as matching Detective Cosgrove's weapon.
All right.
20, which is right here, again, Detective Cosgrove. 23, Detective Cosgrove. 24, 25, 28, I believe that's 28, 29, 30,
There's 29.
29, 28, 30 is casing Detective Cosgrove. 31, and looking for 32. 32, 33 is the phone. 34, 35.
All these from Cosgrove?
Yes, sir.
How many shell casings from Cosgrove was there recovered from the scene by the police?
16.
All right. Now, kind of orient them. That's in the breezeway, and
Yes, sir.
what What apartments are those two?
I believe this is apartment 3 right here, and then the victim's apartment is right here.
Yeah.
That's 1 and 2.
I think there's one more case in Rewa that was just inside the door, but I don't mean to get you.
27.
There's
27.
27, shall I case
Uh-huh.
27?
How many cases, from Hopwood, all together?
He's asked a question.
16,
16?
yeah, 38, and there's 39 just inside the door.
How many bullets can be fired with a fully loaded magazine and one in the chamber with the type of 9mm that Detective Miles Cosgrove would have had that evening?
A Glock 22/40 caliber will fire 16 rounds till empty. After 16 rounds, it'll lock back empty. You have to reload with another magazine, and you'll have be able to fire. So he had 16 rounds
Pretty
available.
much empty what he had.
I'm sorry.
He would have pretty much empty with the.
Yeah, so he basically, it appears, shot his firearm, fully loaded firearm empty.
Question is right. All of those that you just read off, they were all Cosgrove?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And will you get to the, will you speak later about the distance of them?
I'll try.
Okay.
Well, I think we'll show you some trajectory charts that will kind of work it off.
Okay.
Make it
So
make sense.
will it speak to like how far a casing can fly
How far a casing
when
can
shot? Yeah.
I don't know if there's any scientific evidence to how far a casing will fly. It's a guy that spent a lot of time shooting on the range, that's it. About here to the table, maybe, and there again, it depends on a lot of factors.
Okay. So do you feel that the distance that these were as far as like out towards the sidewalk, that would be an appropriate distance for him to be standing in front of the doorway? Does that question make sense?
It probably does, but you gotta realize that. Don't ask me again. It probably makes sense to everybody. Yeah, there's a possibility. Right, I understand after this happened, you had medical people, you had other officers coming, it was a chaotic situation. So to say this is the final arresting of all these cases, that they could have been kicked or knocked or picked up, is, you know,
Not
it's.
necessarily where they fell.
Right,
I
Okay,
didn't hear
thank you.
this. Okay. For the record,
With the,
our exhibits 70 through 84
This is
were
all-
Cosgrove's bullets. Cases,
an approximation, but it would appear that he fired them all those things to be in a similar position.
Who was shooting?
Cosgrove.
Cosgrove?
No, since we're only speaking about these that we found so far, does it seem like or was he moving a lot, or I mean, there's no way of telling exactly, I don't realize that, but it just seems like is he moving much, or is he just standing still, firing the whole magazine?
I believe what happened, and this there again, it's just based on what statements I've heard, I believe, after Detective Madigan gets hit, he's kind of the first guy in Cosgrove's behind him, so I think he kind of moved up to put cover on Madigan, so I think he did move. I think he did, when he moved inside, it's probably where you get the case in 39. So a police officer trained to try to get cover, you know, try to be behind something when you're shooting, that's a natural instinct for a police officer. So you know, when you go through that door, you don't have any cover. So as soon as Madeline went down pretty much in that area, he's trying to cover his fallen officer.
So it would seem, this is all approximation, that 39, you would have had to cross the threshold.
I believe that's possible. There again, that's,
Okay.
we're dealing with the fact
As
that.
you say, the casing goes off to the right.
That's right. But, you know, there again, there's factors involved in it where officers are coming in and out, medical people are coming in and out. But that would, yes, if you,
And that one is cost price.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, and I think I stepped on his question, but his was Exhibit 73 through 84. Those are the photos that Detective Wolf identified, the 16 casings that were, the forensic exam said they were fired from Cosgrove's 9mm. Is that right, Detective?
Yes, sir, it's 40 caliber.
All right, we're going to go to Mattingly. Let's go to, wait a minute. Here's, I had Mattingly right here. That's Cosgrove. What numbers are Matt? Yeah. Okay, we got 77. Okay, all right. We get them all. We got them all so far.
You got them all so far to start at 77.
All right.
So here's the apartment.
We got to do Mattingly, don't we?
Yes, ma'am,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Mattingly 77.
We got him. Okay, we're good.
No, you don't have him. You haven't talked to him.
I haven't talked to him, but that's what we need, 77.
Yeah. Will you find yours?
Yesterday, they stated that the approved numbers were.
Here we are. I got it. Okay.
Certain models, but they were all 9mm. Here's the 40 caliber. So 9mm and 40 caliber is the same.
No, no, for the record.
Okay.
He was saying yesterday, they said they were shooting 9mm. 40 caliber.
9mm block.
Can you repeat the question?
34.
Yesterday, Detective Layfield said that the approved weapons for LMPD officers are Glock 9mm models 17, 19, 45, and 34. Their off-duty weapons are 26, 27, and 19. It seems like there's another 30. Is a 9mm the same as you keep referring to a Glock, a 40 caliber?
No, it's a different,
It is a
different,
caliber.
yes, different caliber.
So then they were not using,
I think you may be confusing off-duty with,
Can you ask a question again? Well, yesterday, Detective Lacefield from the weapons training had stated that the approved weapons for LMPD officers are a Glock 9mm. This is all he mentioned was a Glock 9mm model 17, 19, 45, and 34. They're off-duty weapons. They could use 4 other models. Actually, one of them was the same, but it's 26, 27, 19, and 30. But they were all 9mm. The approved weapons were all Glock 9mm.
I'm not sure, I didn't hear his testimony. So what's the question? This is.
My question was, what's the difference? The initial question was, is a Glock 9 the same as a 40 caliber? Are the 9mm and the 40 caliber the same thing? And it's not. It is a different size bullet.
Yes, sir. It's a large.
and then my follow-up question is, were they using unauthorized gun?
Was your question, what is an authorized firearm for a police officer with LMPD?
Yeah, we were told by the weapons trainer yesterday, in the recorded segment, that the approved weapons were 9mm handguns. And now we're hearing that the bullets fired were 40 caliber bullets. So that doesn't match up with what we heard yesterday for what's an approved handgun.
We're trying to get an answer for that.
So are these officers using unapproved weapons?
And unapproved. We'll get an answer for it. You don't know the answer to that?
No.
Okay. They're asking whether they had approved or unapproved firearms on the night of the shooting. We'll find out. Rather than speculate.
And he did say from the forensics, all the shell casings were from the 40 caliber guns. They're all from a 40 caliber gun?
Yes, but there were 3
Correct.
separate firearms that were fired that night. All right.
Thank you.
Let's go to Mattingly. It's 77.
Here again are the casings from Detective Mattingly.
And which were his casings?
26, 27, 28, 30, and 31.
And this is out in the breezeway.
Yes.
And where approximately, if you can tell by looking at the photo, was Breonna's apartment that night? Approximately.
I believe here is the door to her apartment.
I believe it's right over here. Right. All right. Okay. All right. Now, where is apartment 3?
Right here in this location.
Okay. And why is apartment 3 a concern to this particular investigation?
That is where the projectiles went through the wall of the apartment 4 and into apartment 3.
There were people living in apartment 3.
Yes.
Did that include a mother and a father and a child?
Yes.
And were they present in that apartment the night these shootings occurred?
Yes.
And I want to put up 78, if I could. What is that photo of?
This is apartment 3.
All right. And that's the apartment we're talking about.
Right.
And that's the apartment some bullets entered that apartment that night. Is that
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Now let's go to 79 inside. What's going on here, Detective?
This is the wall in apartment 3 where you can see the projectiles came through the wall.
All right. Are 2 of those?
You can see one there, and then you can barely see this one at the.
So there's 3 bullets,
Right.
at least on this photo, that entered that apartment.
Right.
All right. And is this apartment, does it back into Breonna's apartment? Just pretty much the mirror image of
Yes.
it.
You look at this backs up to her dining room.
All right. 80. Let's look at that. Is 80 the one that you were showing the jury a moment ago that's behind that chair?
Yes, that's what you can see behind the chair.
All right. Let's go to 81. What's that?
That is a projectile located on the kitchen table.
All right. Is this in apartment 3?
Yes.
All right. Was that recovered?
Yes.
All right. And was there forensic work done on that bullet?
Yes, sir.
And did that forensic work determine who shot that bullet? Went through the wall and landed on the table?
Yes, sir, did.
And who fired that bullet that night?
Detective Hankinson.
All right. Can we go to 82?
Yes.
Whose sliding glass door is that?
That's the sliding glass door in apartment 3.
All right. These are the folks that live in the apartment right next to Breonna.
Yes, sir.
It appeared that got all shot up too that night.
Yes, sir.
83.
That's the projectile located on the floor, same in the glass from the door.
All right. Was that forensically examined by the Kentucky State Police ballistic experts?
Yes, sir, it was.
Were they able from that forensic exam of that bullet to determine who fired that bullet that went through the apartment 3 and landed on the floor?
Yes, sir.
Who did that?
Detective Hankinson.
All right, okay. Make sure. 1 second here. Wait, one, I just got one quick. Let me check with Rila real quick. I don't have
We're
84.
about to
do I?
go. Wait, you can get it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it should be 85. All right. Wait a minute. You're saying 84. Oh, that's right. Now, we've talked to, ladies and gentlemen, jury here about several bullets and bullet holes that were located inside apartment 3. There were a number of bullets recovered in and around this scene of the shooting that night, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And a number of them, all of them, were forensically examined to see if they could determine who the origin of those firearms, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so when you're going to be telling the jury who fired it, it's based on the reported forensic exam by ballistic experts, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And so let's go to number 85. All right. And just, I think jury's seen this before, but just for the record, if you'll orient, where are we in Breonna's apartment there?
This is the hallway apartment. You can see.
All right. There's some markers there, is that right?
Yes, sir.
42 is one of them, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And it's kind of hard to see, but there's a casing, a bullet there, is that correct?
Yes, sir, that's a bullet.
All right. And was that bullet forensically examined?
Yes, sir.
And whose bullet was that?
That
Who
came-
fired that, rather?
It came from Detective Cosgrove's
All
work.
right. There's a marker 43 not right next to Breonna's body lying down there. And do you recall what that is?
That is a phone.
All right,
Victim's phone.
that's her cell phone?
Yes, sir.
All right, and then 41, can you see that?
Yes.
Shine that. What is that?
That is a casing.
All right, and were the ballistics examiners, were they able to determine the origin of that casing? What gun fired that left that casing there on the floor?
It is a Glock 43X.
All right, and who was using that gun that night?
It's my understanding Kenneth Walker's. That was Kenneth Walker's weapon.
All right, so that casing came from that firearm?
Yes, sir.
All right, and they recovered Mr. Walker, the gun Mr. Walker had used that night, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And did forensic exam work on it, just like we've been talking about?
Yes, sir.
All right. All right, 86. All right, where are we? We're still in Breonna's apartment here, are we not?
Yes.
Okay. And were there bullets that were recovered by the police department examining this apartment that night?
Yes.
All right. And we actually have, there's holes, bullet holes in these cabinets here, aren't there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were there bullets recovered from that?
Yes, sir.
All right. And just to orient the jury here, go back just 1 second, I apologize. And Did you already shine these two entries there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to 45, and if we could, next. That is 45, 40, wait a minute. Yes, 40, let's go to the next one, be 47, got it, all right, okay. It's, wait a minute, it's not, that's the marker number. 87, can we go to 87, I'm sorry. And what is that we're looking at?
That is marker 45.
All right, and what is that?
That's a projectile.
All right. Did they attempt to match that?
Yes.
They have any success?
No, they didn't.
All right. Now that one, can we go back for just a moment? See that rod there and what that is? Can we go back to 86 for a moment? Thank you. And that pan, did it come from this particular cabinet here on the left at the bottom there?
Yes.
Where you see the rod. Thank you. Can we go to 88 for a moment? Thank you. All right. Did they recover a bullet in that area of that stove in Breonna's kitchen?
Yes, sir.
And whereabouts is that? Can you show the jury? There you go.
There.
All right.
Here's the stuff.
All right. And 46, was that examined by the ballistics experts at the Kentucky State Police Lab?
Yes.
Were they able to make any determination of the what gun fired that bullet that landed there next to the stove?
No, sir, it was inconclusive.
All right. Yes, questions?
Could they at least tell the caliber?
Please.
Could they at least tell the caliber of the?
Did you hear the question, Detective? He's asking, did we know the caliber? We're going to check.
Let's go 45 influence.
Yes, good question. It may take a moment. There are quite a bit of items that were examined for ballistic exam. So just give us 1 second. We're going to get an answer.
I got a follow-up question when you're done with that.
Okay. We're going to let you get your questions. Alex, can we flip the light on for a second? Just 1 second. I know it's in there.
They were all identified as .40 caliber. And when I say inconclusive, actually what they're saying is they could have came from any of the officer's weapons, manual, crossbow, rifles.
Yes. I apologize, I didn't bring that point up. When we say they didn't match it, it didn't necessarily mean there's some outlier that shot that in. They know it came from one of the three, either Miles Cosgrove, John Mattingly, or Brett Hankinson, but there was insufficient detail on the bullet for them to conclude which of the three. And let me go back, because they're looking at what, striations and
Yes.
marks, and there has to be a sufficient number of identical marks for it to say, yes, that came from Miles Cosgrove's gun. If they don't, then they call it inconclusive. And so I may be using some loose terms saying they weren't able to match that up. Well, they weren't, but they know it came from one of those three files. The only one different was the one you saw in the hallway that Casey came from. Kenneth Walton's gun. All right? I think this young lady had a question.
I think you just answered it. I was gonna see if that ruled out their weapons, but it doesn't sound like that rules anybody out, just inconclusive to know which one it came from.
We asked the question before you asked it.
Well done.
Good. But if you haven't, please continue to ask. That's what you all are here for. All right. Now, when you were showing the jury the outside of this window, you recall that belonged to Breonna's sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
We've looked at, we even pointed out bullet holes in the screen adjacent to that window before it got blown out. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Did we recover, and I'm looking at Exhibit 89. That's what I'm up to now? Yes, 89.
Yes, sir.
Were there bullets located in the sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is that marker 47, is that where one of the bullets was located?
Yes, sir.
Was it in her dresser drawer?
Yes, sir.
All right. And can I go to number 90? Photograph number 90? Yes. Yes, okay, yes, thank you. When I'm gonna go back real quick to 47, was that a projectile or bullet, I'm calling it? That was
Projectile,
located?
yes, sir.
Yeah, and did they examine it? And if they examined it, were they able to distinguish whether it was Cosgrove, Mattingly, or Hankinson that fired that bullet?
They did examine it and they were not able to distinguish.
Okay, there it was. I'm sorry, I stepped on your.
Oh, I'm sorry, I just said who fired it.
Was there a second bullet found in the sister's bedroom?
Yes, sir.
Was it in the closet of her bedroom?
Yes, sir.
All right. Is 48 a marker that was used to identify the location of that bullet when the police found it?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was that bullet taken down to the KSP lab and examined it to see if they could determine the source, who shot that bullet into her bedroom?
Yes, sir. It was indistinguishable. They could not tell which officer had fired that.
No. Same thing. It was we know it came from one of those three guns, but we couldn't tell which of the three.
Yes, sir.
All right. '91. There's a shoebox.
Yes, sir.
Is there a hole in that? A bullet, what appears to be a bullet hole?
Yes, sir.
Did they locate a projectile in there?
They did.
And that shoebox is, what does that appear from looking at the photo, where that is located?
It's in the victim's closet.
When you're talking about the victim, we're talking about Breonna's.
Yes.
All right.
Oh, I'm sorry. She's ahead of me. All right.
And were they able to match that bullet with any of the three firearms used by the three detectives?
No, sir. There again, it could have came from any of their weapons, but they were not able to distinguish which one.
Yes, we got a question.
Was the shoebox?
It was located in the closet, but I believe they took it out when they photographed it and put it on. If you see here, here's the closet, here's a...
Good question, though. I appreciate it. It was originally in the closet. Is that clear? Is that clear, your question? Originally in the closet. Thank you for the question. Let's go to 92. Could we do that for a moment? And then we might want to flip back and forth. All right. Explain to the jury what we're looking at there.
That's in the closet where the shoebox was located.
Is that a bullet hole they've marked?
Yes, sir.
Is that where that shoebox was before it
Yes,
was
sir.
moved and examined by the police?
Yes, sir, that's my
All right,
understanding.
thank you, Ruth.
So I have a question.
Yes, ma'am,
So
please.
where that shoebox was in the closet with those other shoes, the bullet would have to come through that wall from
Yes.
Spin it around. Put it back to the closet where
Sure.
the shoeboxes were.
Can we go back and look at that closet that Ree was showing us a minute ago? So she can, see what it shows.
There you go.
Does that answer your question?
So the shoebox then was turned, with the bullet, the shoebox on the washing machine was turned facing that wall, so the bullet came from through that wall.
Yes, ma'am.
Not from-
I might answer. I should be answering. Let the detective answer.
Put our-
Did you hear her question?
Yes. She's gonna put the trajectory report up, which I think is helpful to kind of take a look at these.
While Ree was getting at trajectory, tell them a little bit about what is this?
This is
And who did this work for us? Yes, wait, we got a
Before you
question.
get on that, can you go back to that picture?
Yes. You talking about the shoebox?
Yeah, the right there with the door. So is the other, I see where the color of one bullet, is that another one that's right next to it?
No, that's the captain.
What is that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, there.
That-
That is.
If you look at the wall on the other side, where's the trajectory?
Did that answer your question, ma'am?
Here's the,
I guess so, but it's still going into that wall.
right.
Yeah, you can see that the
There's two, yeah.
shot through the wall.
We're going, now this is a different exhibit. I think we may have seen some of the other day with Barbara. Tell the lady, General Jerry, what is it that all these lines and marks and what is this exhibit we're looking at now and how does it help us?
This was prepared by the FBI when they went in as a trajectory report, and basically it just shows you they take the holes and the bullets and where they're able to match up things and get an idea of where they came from, and then go back and show what direction these rounds came from. You can see these rounds here that we talked about earlier come in the direction of where Detective Hankinson's casings were found, as well as these that go through. And then these rounds here come in the direction of where Detective Cosgrove and Madeline were at.
Now, not every fired shot could we get a trajectory on, is that correct?
Yes, sometimes depending on what the hole, what it was, they can't establish it's not a clean enough hole or clean enough to do a trajectory, so they can't do every one, but these were the ones. And to me, this kind of makes me shake my head and get an understanding of what was going on.
For instance, if you don't have a hole or an exit from which a bullet can be located, can they do a trajectory?
It depends on it. No, they can't. If they can't, if they find a bullet that was laying in the floor, which happened a couple times in this, they can't. But like the good indications here, where you have a screen door that had 5 shots in it, or 5 shots, and then you have a wall over here, it's easy to then come up with trajectories. The more points you have that you can use.
What's on the other side of this wall up
There
here?
again, that's apartment 3.
All right.
The pictures we showed you earlier of the other side.
Does that help you all seeing some of the trajectory we make? He had shown it to you earlier to kind of show you where Hankinson was firing shots outside of the apartment. And if you could show the one up in the bathroom, we're getting ready to show that to them. And that appears to go through the sister's bedroom, doesn't it?
Yes.
And now that takes us right to 92, which is a bullet the police found that night.
Yes.
And where is this bullet located at? We can kind of see it's a bathroom.
It's there in the front, there again, the front bathroom, what I call the front bathroom. There was 2, one for the back, and it went through, and you looked at the trajectory report, and then came to rest.
All right, good. I was
This-
just
this
getting ready to
one.
ask her to do that. Show them what bathroom that is where that bullet came.
This one here.
All right. And this, let me, there's two bathrooms, the one on the right, is that the one that off of Breonna's
Yes,
bed?
that's off of what you call the master, what they call the master bedroom, and this was the.
That's one I
front
call
bathroom.
the sister's bedroom, I call it. All right. Now, we've got a bullet in what looks like the soap tray of that bathroom, the sister's bathroom. Was that taken to the Kentucky State Police lab to determine if they could identify who fired that bullet that night that landed in that bathroom?
Yes, sir, that was determined to come from Detective Hankinson's weapon.
All right, thank you. Was there a furnace in the hallway of Breonna's apartment?
Yes, sir, right there.
All right. And was there a bullet recovered from that furnace by the police?
Yes, sir.
All right, that's 93. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
And as I've asked you before, was that bullet marked on the photo as Exhibit 93?
Yes,
Was
sir.
that also examined by the forensic expert at the Kentucky State Police lab?
Yes, sir.
Was he able to identify who fired that bullet that went into the furnace?
Yes, sir, Detective Hankinson.
All right. I'm gonna hold off on that just a moment. All right. We're gonna come back to that. Now, you had mentioned that the FBI did their own forensic exam inside the apartment.
Yes, sir.
Was that in approximately June of this year?
Yes, sir, they came back and conducted another search warrant and collected some additional projectiles.
Or did they dig into the walls and pull out some bullets that had not heretofore been recovered by the police?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm going to go through a few of these, and two of them are fairly important, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, these are bullets that were found. So just a moment.
You do have to like, because it's kind of hard on our eyes to be frightened or something.
All right, we're going to go through some. You have your FBI results. We're gonna hear.
Yes, sir.
Now, these are bullets that were recovered by the FBI, and the bullets that they recovered, did they examine those bullets forensically?
Yes, sir.
All right. Were we, by reviewing the FBI report, were you, detective, able to specifically determine, what wall, exactly in the wall where a bullet may have been recovered, or just the general room?
Just the general room. I was not there for that particular search.
Okay. But in one instance, we do have the bullet holes. We're going to talk to the jury about that in a minute. All right, for instance, we have A in dining room, that's room A.
Yes, sir.
And was a bullet recovered in the wall of that dining room?
Yes, sir.
All right. And was that examined forensically to see if they could determine the origin, who shot it?
Yes, sir, the FBI forensic examiner was able to determine that that came from Detective Hankinson's.
All right. And then they also recovered one from the Breonna's room, that's H,
Yes, sir.
in the wall, right in there.
Yes, sir.
All right. And were they able to determine that instance, the source of that bullet that was embedded in her wall?
Yes, sir.
Side wall. Who was that?
Detective Hankinson.
All right. And another one, was there not a second one also embedded in that wall
Yes, sir.
of her bedroom?
Yes, sir.
And what did the forensics say the origin of that bullet?
Detective Hankinson's weapon.
All right. There was also a bullet recovered from the living room, from the wall in the living room.
Yes,
Is
sir.
that in that general area?
Yes, sir.
All right. And who was the source of that bullet that went into that was embedded in the wall of the living room?
Detective Mattingly.
All right. They found one that was in the hallway, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And 94, can I put that up? Okay, 94 is up there. Is 90, under 94, does that contain a bullet that's in the hallway?
Yes, sir.
All right, there's 3 of them.
Yes, sir.
And did the FBI able to recover 2 of those 3 from the holes?
Yes, sir.
All right. And were they able to determine who the source was?
Yes, sir. One was from Detective Mattingly.
All right. And was there any other material on that bullet that was forensically examined?
They were able to recover DNA off of that projectile that they could say was a female DNA.
Did it have blood or some other biological substance on the bullet?
Yes, sir. I assume so.
All right. And while we're here on that, was there a second bullet recovered by the FBI from that wall that we're looking at?
Yes, sir. A second projectile was recovered from that area that also had female DNA.
All right. And who was the source of that gun?
Detective Cosgrove.
All right.
Question,
Yes.
this wall is the closet,
No, ma'am. This wall is right here behind where the victim was laying.
right, back into the
front.
closet.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're right.
So it's one of those, so neither of those shots is the shot that went through the wall into the shoebox, right?
No, it was the bullet was recovered. I'm sorry, I shouldn't be testifying. She's asking you if any of
No,
those
these 2 projectiles that were recovered were coming from that wall.
Okay. Thank you.
I apologize for stepping on your answer, your question, rather.
The DNA on both of those projectiles was the same female DNA. They could say it was the same female.
One was from Cosgrove and one was from Miles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One was, explain to him, but one was each one, because I think I kind of stepped on his answer here.
One was from Detective Cosgrove's weapon, and one was from Detective Mattingly's weapon.
Did I get your question? All right. I also have it on hallway D. Did they recover another bullet down there? Not one of the 2 we just talked about.
Yes, sir.
And were they able to determine the source of that one?
There was Detective Cosgrove.
All right. And another one in the hallway they dug out of the wall. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Detective
What?
Cosgrove.
All right. Okay. Two more.
You have one more living room.
Okay.
So there's 3 total Hankinson, 2 total Mattingly, and 4 Cosgrove. You can go over the living room of Cosgrove.
I got everything but the living room?
Yeah.
Okay. And was there another one from the living room wall that there was a bullet was embedded in there?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And that was Detective Cosgrove's
Okay.
weapon.
All right. I'm going to get to the 2 bullets that were recovered from the body.
But you didn't tell me that the KSB was, they didn't able to get results from the body. You haven't gone over that?
No, I haven't
Okay.
touched that.
Okay.
We talked about the bullets being recovered from her, all right?
Right.
But we talk about what they did on it. Now, I want to go back some if I could, okay?
Yes, sir.
When we first started this morning with the jurors, you talked about the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
You remember that?
Yes, sir.
And you talked about the fact that there were bullets that were recovered from Breonna's body during the autopsy.
Yes, sir.
All right. And there were 3 of them, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Was one of them embedded in the heel of her, I believe, right foot?
Yes, sir.
All right. That was recovered, right?
Yes, sir.
But that was never identified.
No, it was not identified specifically as one of the officer's weapons.
All right. Now, there were 2 other bullets recovered.
Yes, sir.
All right. And one of those 2 bullets, all right, caused her death. That was the one in the upper right. It went
Yes, sir.
through her lungs, you said, and part
Yes,
of
sir.
her artery. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And they were recovered, were they examined by the Kentucky State Police, those 2 bullets?
They were.
All right. And when Kentucky State Police did an exam, was the purpose of that exam to determine if they could who the source of those 2 bullets into her torso?
Yes, sir.
All right. And do they do that through an examination of striations made from the bullets they recovered from her body, along with test sample bullets that they took at the lab
Yes, sir.
from each of the 3 firearms used by the policemen?
Yes, sir.
All right. And in doing so, are they attempting to match up, for lack of a better term, striations and other unique marks on the bullets that was recovered from Breonna to the same kinds of markings that may be present on the test bullets from the 3 policemen?
Yes, sir.
All right, and that's a common technique in forensic work.
Yes,
That's
sir.
been around for 100 years.
Yes, sir.
All right. And they do that with equipment like high-intensity magnifying equipment
Yes, sir.
that expands, considerably the ability for them to examine these small and unique marks on bullets.
Yes, sir.
Now, those unique marks are made by various manufacturing paraphernalia inside the barrel.
Yes, sir.
And and over time, other marks come from the use of the gun.
Yes, sir.
All of which are considered by the forensic scientists to be unique
Yes, sir.
and capable, with used with a qualified expert, to match bullets with guns.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the KSP, Stephen Hughes, the forensic expert at our lab here in Frankfurt, did he examine those 2 bullets and attempt to see which of these 3 policemen may have fired those 2 bullets into Breonna that caused her death?
Yes, sir, he did.
And what was his determination?
He could not distinguish between the 3 officers' weapons which one had fired those projectiles.
And I've used the term forensic because they are important forensic exams, ballistic
Yes.
work, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is there a fair amount of subjectivity that necessarily is present in such an exam?
Yes, sir.
It's not like DNA.
No,
you know?
sir.
All right. It's important though, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
But it doesn't have the same scientific certainty that DNA does.
That's correct.
All right. Now, later on, we've been talking about the FBI. They came out and worked on the scene as well,
Yes, sir.
cooperated in other aspects of the investigation with you guys.
Yes, sir.
All right. And did they decide to take a look at these 2 bullets?
Yes, sir, they
There's 3
did.
altogether, but let's concentrate on the 2.
Yes, sir, they
And the
did.
2 bullets I'm talking about are the one that caused her death at the upper left side of her chest, went down her lung, and the one right in here at her abdomen that you talked to the jury about
Yes,
a
sir.
little while ago. All right. And they had the same kinds of tools I've talked about kind of generally.
Yes, sir. I believe they had the exact same type of microscope.
All right. And examiner equally qualified, the same as Stephen Hughes at our
Yes, sir.
lab.
Yes, sir. FBI examiner.
All right. And we talked to that examiner at the FBI and the examiners at KSP.
Yes,
about
sir.
their findings. The FBI had a different result. Tell the jury what was their finding.
The FBI examiner, he was able to say that Detective Cosgrove fired the 2 rounds that were in Breonna Taylor's body.
Including the one that the medical examiner said caused her death.
That's correct.
In doing so, he looked and found, in his opinion, sufficient detail in the bullets recovered from her body to the test bullets he used for comparison purposes from the 3 policemen's gun, right?
Yes.
In examining those, it was his judgment that they were fired by Costco, the 2 bullets in the torso of this Breonna Taylor.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
So to sum up, we don't necessarily have a conflict. We have the Kentucky State Police forensic examiner, who's well qualified, right?
Yes.
You've worked with him, all of us have one time or another.
I'm not sure I've worked with him, but
Oh, okay.
yes.
But essentially, he found there was inconclusive amount of similarity for him to make a call, there's a match.
That's correct.
And that's his subjective judgment, where some subjectivity enters into it.
Yes.
Some examiners are at times more aggressive than others in their attempts to match up bullets and guns. And using the same or similar equipment, the FBI person, their examiner, found that there was sufficient detail in his opinion to say Miles Costco fired the 2 bullets, one of which killed Breonna.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Now, I'm going to check with my colleagues here, make sure I haven't left anything out. Have I? I did?
You just have to introduce these.
Oh, okay. We're going to, these are the trajectories that have been used several times, and they're marked 95 and 6. And therefore, you're on examination, and any questions you might have while we still have it. Have I? Good. Let me check with my boss here. Okay, that's all I have, but we're here for any questions you might have of Detective Wolf.
I have a question. There was, we heard testimony that there was a bullet that went through the ceiling of apartment 4 through the apartment 8, I believe, above. Was that bullet recovered?
No, it was not.
Oh, okay.
There was 2 that were not recovered. There were 2. Yes, sir. 2 both fired up. Yes, sir.
My question is on the spray. I'm looking for the directories that are shown. It
Yes.
looks like somebody or lots of people get sprayed from that doorway. In other words, they, I don't know, 90 degrees or 80 degrees from one side to the other.
I think that's just the way they marked the trajectory points that they could identify. I don't think there's any significance to the markers. They just put those around to try to mark the different trajectories that they were pointing at. I think you see this area here is the beginning of pretty much all of the trajectories, which is pretty much right in the middle. That makes sense?
There's one photo of the bullet that was covered. It looked like that trajectory marker was pointed up. Like from the floor up. No, that one. That's the bottom of the cover, and the trajectory marker is actually going up in the air. So that's what we're-
Yeah, that's a good point. I can explain that. I don't know.
Is he?
And where is that cover located in the, go back to the trajectory?
It's in,
Is that the?
Yes, sir.
That's one of
There was
those.
one by the stove and one.
Well, they're showing that there's two.
Oh, I'm sorry, this is the FBI trajectory, that, the marker you saw, Louisville PD did their own some of their trajectory analysis, we didn't use theirs, we used the FBI, so I think that's a different one.
But the pan
Would have been in one of those.
with a right missing.
Look at the picture. If I'm looking at, number 86, it looks to me like it's in this tab here.
Yes, the picture shows, the director shows that it's on the right, the picture shows it's on the left.
Right. And there again, there was, the little PD had done some trajectory stuff, and then the FBI came back in and did this sometime. So that, but yeah, right there is the.
Okay, yeah, there it is.
So then the FBI trajectory for those two shots is off?
No,
It looks like
no, there's some,
there's two colors.
Right, they're not showing anything.
if you look at these,
It is off.
if you look at these,
Right.
this one end up here in the back.
Where did it end up in the back?
They're not necessarily all on right. That reflects.
They might be coming
Yeah, okay, so this trajectory of court is only one that they can
Right.
confirm.
That they could identify.
So like the one that was in, like, the one we were just referencing, right, that may not have been able to determine where that was coming from, so they could.
If you look at that, that's only speculation on my part. When you look at the close-up on it, it's pretty big, pretty rough. Usually the ones they like to use are pretty tight. And that's just my speculation. So, lady back here wants a question.
I can see that the projectiles from the front door goes, the majority of them are out the hall of the sister's bedroom. I see 1, 2, 3, 4 projectiles that are marked there on that trajectory.
You see here, some
Just
go.
outside, you go in
Yes.
sister's bedroom.
Right there,
No,
yes.
no, that's the sister's bedroom.
Right here.
Now, see there four.
These here, you talking about?
No, the ones in the hall, right?
Right there? Yes,
Yeah.
right now.
So that's the majority of where the bullets were found.
Right.
5 of them there. But there are only 2 against the wall that went all the way down.
Right.
And what are those little short trajectories there? The one that goes into the wall, that one comes out, goes at right angle, goes to the sharp wall.
Yes,
And the
and
one-
I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure. But these here, if you remember, Walker's casing was
So
found right.
it's just down a little bit. Before they're grouped together,
Yeah.
and then
These
that
right there.
one little extra went out to the left, just above C, above that.
It's possibly where they exited her.
Okay. It's possible.
It could have been the same.
You made a good point. Some of those where they're marking things like in this hall are where they believe the bullet hit something and then continued on. Yes, sir.
The bullet that he detected manually that went through?
Yes, sir.
Was everything?
Yes.
It was?
Yes, sir, it was, well, yes, it was out in the hall. I apologize, I probably should have, I thought I made you read that earlier, but exactly what the cases were. I'll show you.
Yeah, but the word bullet that was in the hollow.
They were unable to determine inclusively where they KSP. I don't know, is it,
Well, they, to see if it enters.
right, 37. And that's the bullet. It had blood on it that they were sending to, I believe, to get comparison done.
Was it a straight shot or was it a downward shot of that?
If you look at the injury to his leg, it went in here and went pretty much straight through.
Straight through.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Casing marker 42 was doing the hall markers, 3 on the right row, 42 was there, and you said came from Cosgrove's gun.
There was one a bullet that came from Cosgrove's weapon.
Yeah, down toward the end of the hall, there were 3 of them with this casing number, marker number 42.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that was actually where he was standing, where there?
No, that's the projectile. The casings were all out.
Oh, the casing, it was a
Right,
projectile.
right, the projectile, actually,
Okay,
bullet
it
part.
was a projectile.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
You said it was a casing, that's why I was.
No, ma'am.
Walker's casing was there.
Walker's
Yeah, Walker,
casing,
yes, but it's
yes,
a
that's
marker
correct.
toward the front, yeah.
Questions?
Yes.
For the, back hallway, the wall that,
Has
on
it-
the opposing side of the closet, just to make sure I have it right, one of those was from Mattingly, and 2 of those 3 were from Cosgrove?
No, ma'am, one from me. Yeah, yes, sir.
So there were 3 shots, I think it was, you know,
Okay. Also, I've got an answer for you on your 40 caliber, 9 caliber. In March of 2020, the Glock 40 caliber was the official weapon with the police department. Mr. Lacefield, we clarified that. And it's just a little bit bigger. It's pretty popular.
Yeah, I know there was different, it was just the difference.
Yeah, there was a time period about that time where everybody went from the 40 to the 9. So I said that's what we did the same thing.
You confirmed 5 shots from Mattingly?
6, we recovered 6. Six, there were 6 cases found.
So 5 in front in the breezeway, and then the 1 in the wall.
Oh,
That
Casey
is.
was inside.
Casey.
Well, the other one's inside the hallway, the other case.
One casing inside the hallway was just inside the door was a hospital. Yes, sir.
They were all in
Six casings and 2 projectiles. Yes, ma'am.
So what kind of gun did Mr. Walker do?
You had a Glock 43X, which is a 9mm.
43 L?
Yes, ma'am. It's a good gun, I've got one.
That's the one bullet that they had in
I'm sorry, sir. You said it over time.
Our Glock.
No, Magnum.
A Magnum had 6 casings and 2 projectiles that we were able to put.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Anything else?
I'm looking.
Yes, we got a
See
question.
the door, the front door. What's about with it?
You want to see the front door?
The front door, wasn't the door through which Mattingly was hit when the Walker shot? Or was the door open enough to clear the door? Yeah. When Mattingly shot?
They had reached the door. The door was open.
The door was already.
He went in the door.
I got the feeling that the door kind of opened and sort of slow back shut a little bit.
I'm not sure, this is the pictures, but they reached the door, which was reached, and then when he went in the doors, he was shot.
Walker said that as soon as that door came on,
Yeah. Maybe when you do this, somebody has to be the first guy through the door. That's, you know, whoever's the first guy through the door is obviously gonna be the guy that's in the most danger.
These photos may not represent exactly what at that moment, where the position of the door.
That's a good point.
Any other questions from the jury? Okay.
record, off the 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 record.
We're back on record. This is Barbara Mains-Whaley, Assistant Attorney General. And it is 10:04 a.m. We have recalled Detective Herman Hall, and he testified previously yesterday, and he is still under oath. And Detective Hall, you have been given a list of questions the grand jury asked yesterday.
Yes,
Would you
ma'am.
go ahead and address those questions?
Yes, ma'am. The first question is, were drugs, money, or paraphernalia recovered from apartment 4? And the answer to that is no. They did not go forward with executing the initial search warrant that they had for Breonna Taylor's apartment. The second question is diagrams, drawings from interviews specifically related to the stack. No, I haven't seen any type of drawings, diagrams, or anything of that nature related to the door stack.
Sorry, that was actually in relation to the interviews. In a lot of the interviews, they would say, oh, here, let me just draw it for you, it'll be easier to understand. Did you all get any of those drawings?
I haven't seen them.
There was one that showed where he was.
So just that one? Okay.
And the third question is why body cams weren't activated. I can't answer that. You know, I don't know why body cams weren't used for that.
Didn't the city say that they didn't use body cams for this type of operation?
I'm sorry?
Didn't the city say they don't use body cams for this type of operation?
I don't know. I mean, if the city said that, I don't know it. I believe they've changed their policy since this incident.
I mean, when this happened, they weren't.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the city said, you know, as far as body cams go. I do know that there are no body cams of that entry. The fourth question is, what was the formal plan, assignments for serving warrant? I'm not sure I can, as
indicated.
Was indicated by Cosgrove in the 9/18 interview.
Was there a formal plan between the 7 officers as they made approach to serving the warrant?
I'm not aware of one.
He mentioned in that interview that there was a formal plan and that he had an assignment, specific assignment for where to be positioned and located. So based on that interview, nobody has seen an actual formal plan to
No, ma'am.
corroborate that statement.
No, ma'am, I haven't seen it. The only plan that I have seen, you guys have probably seen the race board when they did the briefing for the search warrants. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, gosh.
I'm sorry.
It's the whiteboard,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have, it just says knock and announce on it.
Sure.
Ms. Zakaria, can we get a photograph of the whiteboard? Would you like to see a photograph of the whiteboard at the main briefing?
Yes.
Sure. You okay for me having this on?
Go ahead, put it on. So Detective Hall, you would look at that, this is Exhibit 97 that we have pulled up here. And if you would, is this the Springfield Drive Apartment 4 noted here on the whiteboard?
Yes, ma'am, it is. They've got the address wrong. I believe they got 3007, but it's actually 3003.
And it says above that, knock and announce.
Yes, ma'am.
And then what do we see below the address?
We see a list of officers that are assigned to that location.
Which would be,
Sergeant Mattingly, Detective Campbell, Detective Nobles, I don't know, Detective Ford, I believe it is, Ford, Detective James, King, Cosgrove, and they got Hankinson and Franklin. Those are the K-9 officers. And on this particular date, Hankinson was the K-9 officer that went to that.
okay, and then next to Campbell, can you see what it says here?
Yes, ma'am. He was positioned in the parking lot with eyes on the apartment prior to the others arriving to execute the search warrant.
And that was from the earlier briefing.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions?
But does the deputy say knock and announce?
Okay,
Is that it?
that's all, thank you.
Thank you all.
So we will
Thank you all.
go off record. All right. Today is September 23rd, 2020, Jefferson County Grand Jury. The charges are Commonwealth of Kentucky versus Brett Hankinson, wanton endangerment, first degree, count 1, count 2, and count 3.